As I explained earlier, a person was caught on CCTV walking around this corner. This is very likely Tommy Mair, who has not just committed murder, nor has he been anywhere near Market Street. He seems to know where he is headed, and as I suggested earlier, he may have been redirected by a bogus phone call to get him to head towards another cul-de-sac. His journey took him along Leeds Road, where two unarmed officers in a police car saw him as they drove past him. One media report claimed their sighting of him was at 1:10 p.m. This time is impossible because they arrested him here at 1:29 p.m. The time these police officers saw him would have been at about 1:28 p.m., not 1:10 p.m. After seeing him, they immediately swung their car around, followed him into Whitehorse Close and arrested him on Rysdale Avenue. That would not have taken more than a minute. 1:10 p.m. is 18 minutes too early, and I suspect this has been stated deliberately incorrectly in order to cover up the missing 18 minutes I delved into earlier. I will let the police officers describe in their own words what happened.
We were about a few miles away with Craig, and we was on the radio, and we decided we were sent into the area to have a look for the suspect, and we got told to proceed with caution because he was obviously armed still and he possibly had a gun and a knife on him.
So then you saw Thomas Mair?
Yes.
Didn't you?
You didn't know at the time, though?
We didn't know, we thought it was him.
Is the man who had just murdered Joe Cox?
Yeah.
What did you know about him at that stage?
Absolutely nothing other than he had a firearm potentially on him and a knife on him.
So you've turned the car around. Do you park the car? Do you stop the car in the street? Do you jump out?
No, we started following him. He started walking down the cul-de-sac, and there were a couple of people in the gardens because it was around about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
The officer states around 1 o'clock. This is incorrect. It was around 1:30, a big error for a professional whose job it is to collect evidence. Was this a slip of the tongue because he knew something else was supposed to happen at a different cul-de-sac at around 1 o'clock that afternoon?
I put the window down and I sort of sat on the window ledge and I hung out the window. Craig held my belt. And I remember Craig shouting to me, he's got something in his hand, he's got something in his hand.
For the record, he was carrying a black holdall.
And I was shouting to him to stop. He just ignored me at the start, and then he turned around, and then Craig, he was still shouting, and then I just told him to put his bag down, show his hands, and he did. He threw his bag down.
He threw his bag down, didn't he then, yeah?
And he put his arms out to the side and went, "It's me."
One critical thing these officers are deliberately failing to recall is that they had been given the suspect's name as Tommy Mair. A fact which at this point in time, if the official story is true, nobody could have known. When they apprehended the suspect, one of the officers asked the man, "Are you Tommy Mair?" So when the officer states that the suspect said, "It's me," this could have been in reply to the officer's question, "Are you Tommy Mair?" How do I know these officers knew the suspect's name? Because I have interviewed two witnesses who saw the arrest as it happened.
I can't remember getting out the car.
No.
The next memory I've got is we're literally shoulder to shoulder with Craig, and we're running as fast as we could towards him, and then as we've come probably as far as we were to you, he's quickly moved his arms from outside, from his outstretched towards his belt
and down,
and
which is the worry where the firearm is.
we thought that's what we thought.
That's what he thought. He is not making much commitment in this interview to a firearm being found.
What did you do?
We rugby tackled him to the ground and got hold of his hands as quick as we could. And then you put some handcuffs on him.
The rugby tackle caused the suspect's head to be split open against the ground. The footage filmed by a resident shows Tommy Mair being bandaged up by the two arresting officers. It was filmed from this house, that of local window cleaner Rob, who watched with his partner events unfold from his living room window. His partner noticed the suspect walking into the street before the police arrived.
Yes, it was a Thursday lunchtime. Me and my partner Robert was waiting for the football to start. I was sat on the sofa under the window, a good view of what goes on up and down our streets, with it being a cul-de-sac. I just happened to see a man walking down the road, which I'd not seen before, because obviously everybody who comes down here I really know, lived here for 20 years now. And I happened to say to Robert, oh, this man who's this coming down the street, he looks a bit strange.
Or just sat watching football, England and Wales it was, and Lisa said, there's somebody walking down the street. Who's this walking down the street? And I didn't take no notice.
Got down probably halfway down the road. A few seconds later, the police arrived.
Then when she says, oh, that's police are here and all now. So that's when I stood up and had a look.
Just one police car came down at first, quite at a speed, came down. They obviously got out. And
I can't really know, they just like sort of, when they got out of the car, they said something to him, but I couldn't hear what they said. And he sort of turned, faced them, didn't try to run off, he just had his hands down by his side, and that's when they sort of like charged him, rugby tackled him, took him to the floor. So then I've gone outside then. So when I've gone out, I'm only stood like 10 yards away from him, 15 yards away from him. That's when I could hear him saying, are you Thomas Mair? Have you just shot and stabbed somebody in Birstall?
Okay, and can you describe the injury?
On his head? Yeah, he just banged his head. When they took him rugby tackle, he went back, banged his head.
Okay, so you can confirm definitely you heard them say those two things?
Yeah.
My partner Robert heard the police say, are you Thomas Mair's, or it could have been Tommy Mair, have you just shot and stabbed somebody in Birstall?
So what happened then, Rob?
I just went upstairs and started filming it then.
Right.
And that's when all other police come down the street then.
The next few seconds there were half a dozen police cars down.
And then I've come back downstairs and I was taking more videos.
One of the armed police officers, the first car that came down, came over to the window and told Robert to stop filming. Robert said, I'm in my rights, I can do what I want in my own property. And he carried on filming.
And photos from outside.
Right.
And that's when that police man come over with mask on his face, covered up.
Right, so this is an armed officer?
Armed officer, yeah.
He comes up to you?
Running over gardens, come running over three gardens to me.
Right, and he's telling you not to film?
Yeah.
So just, can you remember exactly what he said?
Don't be filming or something.
And you just said he had his face covered?
Yeah, he had a mask on his eyes showing.
Right.
He had a hat on and a mask.
Right. So did you feel that he deliberately covered his face up so you didn't know his identity, or?
I'm not sure about that, but it felt intimidating. It did.
Right.
When he come right up to me with a gun and telling me to stop and that.
To stop filming, and he said that more than once, is that right?
Yeah, another time when I was taking another photo at it, he come up again to the window, and I think this was the third time, and I got fed up of him. You know what I mean? I said, oh, I'm in my rights to film this. And that's when he sort of went away with tail between his legs, like sort of thing.
Right.
I said, well, I was in my rights to film.
Right. After it all finished, the police came to Lisa's house.
Yeah, couple of days after.
And were you there then when they came?
Yeah.
So tell us what happened there.
They come in and they were just asking questions, you know. Just sort of, I can't remember what I said to the police now, really.
Right. And did you sign anything then?
No.
So it wasn't a proper written statement then?
No.
Right.
No.
And did they invite you to the station?
No.
Were you invited to give evidence at the trial?
No.
So when you went outside and you heard them say, are you Tommy Mair? Have you just shot and stabbed someone in Birstall? What went through your mind there in terms of, did you think, well, how do they know who it is, or did you think, well, they've got it?
I did actually, because I said to Lisa that they already know his name when I went back in.
Right.
And I told BBC guy come day after wanting an interview.
Right.
But I didn't get an interview with him, and
right.
I told him that they knew his name, right. And he pulled a face, and it was strange, like.
So you were out on your front garden at some point, feet away from it, right?
Yeah.
Did you see any weapons, Rob?
No, none at all.
None on the road, none on this person?
None.
Right. And what about the bag? Did he get a look at the bag at all?
Yeah, it was like a brown bag.
Could you see inside it at all?
No.
So, and there was a carrier bag apparently as well?
Yeah.
Right.
But
So
obviously that were in front, because when the rugby tackled him, they've took him back 10 yards forward.
Right.
You know what I mean?
right. So you can confirm that you didn't see any weapons there.
No weapons.
So ITV approached you to get the footage from your phone. Just tell us what happened there, because you think your son put something on social media.
Yeah.
And then ITV saw
Because
it?
we took some pictures. As I was taking photos as well. And she must have forwarded a photo to her son saying, "Oh, look what's happening outside our house." And he's reposted it. And somebody from ITV News must have seen it. And they phoned him up. And they got Lisa's phone number. And
Right. So they then took your phone, after you agreed a price to sell the rights to it, they took your phone off you
yeah,
and then made sure that they deleted it.
everything, yeah.
Right. Because obviously the part where he comes up to you and he says, "Stop filming,"
Oh, yeah.
you were filming that.
Yeah,
So you would have had that recorded.
yeah.
And that hasn't been shown on the news, has it?
No.
Right.
There's loads of stuff what they didn't show, like.
So can you
they
recall-
only showed the main video. You know what I got? But I took loads of photos and other films, and they've only shown the one what I took from the bedroom window.
So you took some still photographs as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But you didn't pick anyone out individually in
No.
all of those people at the time. You didn't
No.
think anything unusual.
No.
So those still photographs that you took afterwards, they deleted those as well, did they?
Deleted everything.
Right.
Everything.
Right. So presumably ITV will have, well, what do you know what the definition of your phone is? The camera?
No, no.
Have you still got that phone?
No.
You've got a different phone, but
Yeah.
did it have a fairly good camera on it?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. It would be interesting to see those photographs, but ITV have presumably suppressed them then. Or you've not seen them.
No. Not seen them since the day I took them.
Right.
Because, my daughter went off because I carried on watching football. I said, "Oh, you'll go inside, I'm watching football." And she's come back then, and it would all been wiped off, all photographs
Right.
and
Now,
video itself.
you said that they put a tent over the bag. Just explain that. Just explain what happened to the bag afterwards.
Yeah, they just put a big tent round it, and it must have been there until 2 o'clock in the morning before they'd finished. So from when it happened, an hour after, they put a tent over it until at least 1 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
2 o'clock in the morning.
And did you see anyone look in the bag at any time?
No,
Right.
no, because they would tent on round it, and they'd put a tent on it.
Did you see either of the officers feel the bag
No, no,
or inspect the bag?
no.
And did you see one of the officers at the trial? He claimed that he pulled something out of his pocket and it was a plastic bag full of bullets. Did you see him take anything out of their pockets at all?
I did hear him say something like, "Which pocket's it in? Where have you got out in your pockets?"
Right.
And I couldn't hear what he was saying. Then I heard the officer say, "Which pocket?" I did hear him say that, "Which pocket?"
Right. But
I didn't say out being pulled out. No,
you didn't see anything taken out.
no.
Right. So there was another neighbour, one house up,
Yeah,
who also filmed similar to what you filmed. Although I think she was filming a bit earlier, was she?
a bit earlier. Yeah,
And that was screened on the BBC News.
yeah. Because she put it on a Facebook.
Right. So just tell us what happened to that footage.
Police come and took a phone, seized the phone.
They seized it.
Yeah,
Right. So she doesn't have a copy of that either. If they seized the phone.
yeah. Presume not. No,
Right.
unless she's got a phone back now and it's still on. I don't know.
Right.
I've never really spoke to her about it.
The police did not take written statements from Elizabeth or Rob, and they were not asked to give evidence at the trial. Surely Tommy May's defence team should have been interested in these witnesses. They did not see any knives, bullets, nor a gun. Just a man on his own, minding his own business, carrying a dark-coloured hold-all, walking down a street. Nobody on Rysdale Avenue knew Tommy May, nor had even heard of Tommy May. Tommy's friends lived at the other side of Birstall. Here we catch the BBC lying about this in one of their early news bulletins.
Area, we should stress, not by the police, but he's been named by people who live there as Tommy Mayer. And clearly in this video, Mr. Mayer is being arrested. That is as much as we know. This is all coming from local people. This is not coming from the police force. but he has been named by people who live in that area as Tommy Mair. So these are the latest pictures there.
In the arrest video, we can hear one of the police officers saying, "That's Thomas Mair, it's Thomas Mair." Those words suggest to me they knew the name of who they were looking for, and his name was being used to verify they had captured the right person. When I showed this footage at one of my lectures, I was contacted by experienced armed response officer Mark Parr. Mark was quite shocked at the way the armed officers were acting. He spent 13 years working as an authorised firearms officer with the Tactical Firearms Unit based at Openshaw, Greater Manchester. He lists the courses he has passed. Here is what he said. "During my time as an AFO, I have dealt with hundreds of firearms incidents in and around Manchester, thus dealing with a vast array of armed situations, some of which involve cross-border and anti-terrorist operations. The clip involving the arrest of Thomas Mair had me quite astonished, as it did not follow any firearms training that I am or have ever been aware of. In fact, it was like a training example of what not to do in that situation. The video clip clearly indicates that the suspect prior to arrest was potentially armed, and to make things more complicated, he did not have a firearm in plain sight. The weapon at the point of arrest had clearly not been identified or located. In addition to this, one must not, as an AFO, assume a suspect has only one weapon on their person and deal with the suspect as a serious armed threat until thoroughly searched. The search should have been carried out by armed response officers only, while the suspect is at gunpoint with at least one other armed officer. No unarmed officer should be anywhere near this situation, with their only role being to create a sterile area for armed officers to work within, keeping members of the public away from the scene. 1. This incident would have immediately attracted an authority for armed deployment by the duty officer. 2. Armed deployment must have been authorised, as armed officers arriving clearly have their G36 weapons out. This weapon needs an authority to be carried overtly on display and is usually kept in the vehicle gun safe. 3. Once authority is given, no unarmed officer would be getting involved with the suspect. 4. On arriving at the scene, the armed officers would take the suspect under control and immediately point their weapons at them. This would be carried out in an L-shaped fashion, usually one officer with the G36 and one officer with a self-loading pistol. The officer with the pistol would normally be the officer to get hands on the suspect. In this case, the video clip clearly shows no shortage of armed officers, so the suspect would have been kept at gunpoint until further ARV arrived at the scene. This clip shows 2 unarmed officers running the incident, and when armed officers arrive, they stand back, leaving the unarmed officers to carry out a search for a weapon whilst administering first aid to the offender. This is a ridiculous state of affairs and simply would not happen. The injuries are not life-threatening, and by wiping his face and placing bandages on him, they would be potentially destroying forensic evidence. Simply put, in such situations, all persons present until proved otherwise are potential terrorists, injured or not, and each person would be individually searched for more weapons or further incendiary devices by armed officers only. The scene on the photograph looks like a mock-up scene, and I would suggest that although something clearly occurred on that evening, it does not, in my professional opinion, stack up to scrutiny. Based on what this firearms officer states, it seems the officers in the video are probably not police officers. My guess is they are military, perhaps Special Forces or SAS, dressed up as police officers. But the best is still to come. Watch carefully this unmarked police car. A man has just got out of the left-hand passenger side, which means he was driven to the scene. Look at the way the man walks. Could this be the pigeon-toed man in the white baseball cap who was seen to shoot and stab Joe Cox? He walks over to Tommy Mair and takes a good look at him. Is he making sure the operation has arrested the right man, the patsy, Tommy Mair? After all, the perpetrator would be briefed on who he was impersonating. After I highlighted this individual in a lecture, but before I realised myself that he might be the perpetrator, I received several emails from viewers who thought the plainclothes man emerging from the unmarked police car was the same man fleeing the scene on Market Street. Here are some quotes from those emails. I've just watched the Joe Cox video, and the first thing I noticed is that the chap in the white cap walking down Market Street has a decided limp, dodgy left foot or leg. The mystery man chauffeured to the arrest scene also has a distinct limp due to a bad left foot. Are they the same person? Just watched your film of the Joe Cox case and noticed that the person walking away from the scene had a limp, akin to walking with an Achilles tendon injury. The person from the police car appeared to walk with a similar limp, although it is partially hidden. The guy that walked away from the murder scene, I believe he had a distinct walk. Then watched further after the two officers arrested him, and then there was the person who got out of the unmarked car, which you drew the similarities between them, and I noticed he had a similar type of walk. The man walking away from the crime scene had a definite limp. The man who arrived at the arrest scene in the unmarked car, he had the same limp.
We see this chap getting out of this unmarked car with a very similar walking pattern to the chap in several of the other scenes. As he gets out of the car, he's got this very distinct pigeon-toed walk, okay, and I can see a limp, a slight limp. And it's even more prominent when he walks back to the car. You can see this throw of the left leg again as he's making his stride, and the pigeon toes. There's a lot of similarities there. There's a lot of similarities, I believe, in the walking pattern, the inversion of the feet.
For the sake of completeness, I will cover the forensic evidence. Bear in mind that if these events were organised by the senior detectives, forensic evidence could easily be planted by them or by their officers. Forensic evidence is not reliable if your investigation has an agenda or is corrupt. At the trial, arresting officer P.C. Wright claimed he found a plastic bag containing about 8 or so bullets in the suspect's pocket. Did nobody bother to count them? The other officer, P.C. Nichols, testified that he found a gun in the suspect's holdall, but P.C. Wright testified that he just felt it was there. Neither officer at the trial testified that the suspect had a knife, even though they searched him. At 14:50, which is an hour and 20 minutes after the arrest, a senior crime scene investigator arrived at the scene and erected a large tent over the bag. The investigator could not be present at the trial, so his testimony was just read out to the court. Not only that, it appears his name was not given to the court either. The statement claimed that the investigator discovered a black baseball cap on the ground, a knife sheath and a dagger, and a long gold-type object which, when unscrewed, contained a knife. The investigator took 118 photographs. Apparently, the gun was partially visible, peeping out of the bag. This is incredible, because if the two arresting officers testified that they found no knives, it seems likely that the unnamed senior crime scene investigator has planted evidence at the scene. The trial should have been dismissed when this glaring contradiction came to light. Note also, there was no witness testimony nor other evidence to suggest that Tommy Mair possessed or acquired any of these weapons before the attack. It was claimed that the gun had various bloodstains on it, which all matched Thomas Mair for DNA analysis. They said a spot of blood was found on the barrel, which matched Joe Cox DNA. As far as I am aware, the perpetrator was not injured or bleeding, so why would his blood be found on the gun? Inside the dark holdall, the police claim a Tesco carrier bag was found, and on it, blood belonging to Mair and Cox. Again, why would the perpetrator's blood be inside the holdall? Also inside the holdall, they claimed, was a brown glove with Cox's blood on it. His mobile phone, which fell out of his pocket, apparently also had bloodstains on the back and side. Remember, he puts the holdall down before the police officers rugby tackle him, splitting his head open, and he doesn't touch the holdall again after that. So why would any of his blood be on the gun or in the bag? Was all the blood planted after the arrest, as it appears the knives were? In light of everything I have previously stated, we have to consider also that the gun and bullets were planted. While we are on the subject of the holdall, this photograph shows a remarkably new-looking item. Was this really the bag Tommy was carrying, or was this a matching new bag bought specifically for the operation? At the murder scene, Joe Cox's blood was found, and as you might expect, no DNA from the perpetrator. I am not aware of any ballistic evidence at the murder scene. I also am not aware of any evidence put forward of blood splatter or firearms residue on the grey t-shirt, which you would expect considering what supposedly happened. Thomas Mayer's previous mental health problems have been trumpeted by mainstream media. If his mental health was a problem, then he should have been given help defending himself. Also, if the man in the dock was a far-right extremist wishing to spread his message, the trial would have been a platform from which to do that. But the man said almost nothing. Forensic evidence might not be the only evidence that was planted that day. Before Tommy Mayer was in custody, just minutes after the police had arrested him, they entered his house on Lowood Lane, unaccompanied by any third party. The list of props they claimed they found there, which demonstrates he was a far-right extremist, to any critical mind is almost comical. Note that none of this was mentioned in media reports in June 2016. It only became known after the trial in November.
We found lots of literature, books, magazines that all seem to link back to the far right.
Third Reich Eagle, mail order catalogues and brochures. A lot of that material goes back as far as the early 90s. Lever Arch folder, and within that there were news clippings of Anders Breivik and other terrorist atrocities. Also, Wikipedia pages of...
Shortly after I exposed the two arresting officers in an online lecture, which has now had well over 100,000 views, Tweedledum and Tweedledee were invited to the UK Parliament, and MPs were encouraged to applaud them for their bravery.
Order. Colleagues, today the two extremely brave police officers who apprehended the killer of our late friend and colleague Joe Cox are in the side gallery for Prime Minister's questions. I am referring to PC Jonathan Wright and PC Craig Nichols, both of the West Yorkshire Police. Gentlemen, we honour your public service, we thank you for it, and we offer you the warmest of welcomes here to the House of Commons today.
We are also joined by the former presiding officer of the Welsh Assembly, David Aylesbury Butler.
I have spoken to two researchers who attended Tommy Mayer's trial, one of whom was Dr. Nick Colostrom. Both researchers had strong reservations about whether the man in the dock was the real Tommy Mayer.
I sat through the trial, yeah, it was a very extraordinary experience. He wasn't even asked to swear an oath that he was Thomas Mayer. He took no interest, like he was just doing a crossword puzzle or something. So I would describe him as totally detached. Can we please have a witness who will confirm this guy's Thomas Mayer? And so this is one of the quite unreal aspects of the trial, that guy could be allowed to sit there for 5 days without anyone identifying him.
The man pleaded not guilty, but during the trial his legal team didn't present a defence. Once the prosecution had finished, that was it. Was this another clue the accused was just an actor put in place to facilitate the right verdict? As I have already set out, there was a strong motive for using an impostor at the trial. There are no photographs I have been able to find of the suspect at legal hearings or at the trial. There are some very close-up photographs of the suspect's face which were put out in mainstream media shortly after the trial. There is a video of the suspect being interviewed by the police, and there are some photographs taken of the suspect at a police station. I have also collected some images of Tommy Mair from his past. In order to try and resolve the issue of which of these images were of the real Tommy Mair and which ones possibly weren't, I visited two of his close friends in Birstall. These friends know him well and would see him every week, speaking to him in person face to face. I showed them this collection of photographs from Tommy's past, and they agreed they were all of Tommy. I then showed them the clear facial images from mainstream media. Both witnesses immediately recognised this person as Tommy Mair. I then showed them the video footage from the police interview, filmed according to the timestamp the day after the murder, and they both stated that they did not think this was Tommy Mair. The eyebrows were too thick, and his body language was wrong. I noticed too that the mole on his right cheek cannot be seen in the police interview video. This still image of him standing, Mair's friends stated they did not think was a picture of Tommy either. Note the size of the feet in this image and compare it to the feet in the arrest video. And are those head injuries genuine, or are they moulage and makeup? Since speaking to these two friends, I have shown the same images to two more of Tommy's friends, and they also agree that the man in the police video is not Tommy. Bear in mind, I do not think this man was necessarily the perpetrator. If it is not Tommy Mair, as his friends suggest, they have used quite a convincing double.
It's not uncommon for the police to sit in an interview room and listen to somebody saying no comment. But it is uncommon for us to sit and listen to somebody saying nothing. And he just simply didn't react to anything.
If they were using a double in this interview, then that double would not have an identical voice to the real Tommy Mair. So was this the reason why the actor, if that's what he was, did not speak at all? We see in this image the suspect with his arms folded, left over right. Here is a young Tommy Mair, also with his arms folded, left over right. You can see the way Tommy folds his arms, with his fingers of his right hand clearly visible resting on his left arm. The suspect, however, folds his arms in a different fashion, keeping his right hand obscured from view underneath his left arm. Court drawings also show the suspect with arms folded, hiding his right hand, sometimes done by people who bite their fingernails. The failure of the suspect to speak was also observed at the trial. He only uttered one word throughout the entire trial to confirm his name, and researchers at the trial say this one word was almost inaudible from the gallery.
He wasn't even, he only said one word, literally one word in the whole week trial. Yes,
Okay.
he was asked, "Are you Thomas Mair?" Yes.
In one of the suspect's magistrate hearings, he is alleged to have said his name was Death to Traitors. But nobody who knew him was at this hearing, so if his voice was different, it would have gone unnoticed. Mark Conlon was intrigued by claims that the real Thomas Mair was not the man they presented at the trial. He noticed in some artists' drawings of the suspect that the mole on Tommy Mair's face was absent. Artists pay great attention to detail, so the mole should surely feature in every court drawing, but it didn't.
I was aware of some artists' impressions that were done at the hearings and at the trial by two court artists. So I did some analysis on that because I didn't know whether the identity of Mair was correct, or I know there's a lot of doubt about it. So I did some analysis on the drawings, and it revealed quite a lot, I thought, because one of the ladies called Julia Quinzeler, she did some drawings at the Westminster Magistrates hearing. Now, her drawing put Tommy Mair with a mole, while Elizabeth Cook's drawing didn't put Tommy Mair with a mole, and that was at the magistrate's hearing. And I also looked at the trial, and it revealed that they didn't put a mole on his face in any of the drawings at the trial. And at the actual Old Bailey, at the hearings there, Julia Quensler, she was the only one who did the artist's impression at that hearing. And she put him with a mole and without a mole. So what I found fascinating was that at the trial, they both consistently drew him without a mole. So there's consistency in Elizabeth Cook's drawings of alleged Tommy Mair, yet with Julia Quensler, her drawings were inconsistent, but they were consistent at the trial.
As I mentioned earlier, Tommy Mair's family were told not to attend the trial. This is a red flag. Another red flag is that the jury were not shown photographs of Joe Cox's body.
And then they were told, oh, they wouldn't be shown the body or any photographs of the body. Well, that is pretty fundamental for a British murder trial, which is, a very extraordinary departure from normal procedure.
They were told images would be too upsetting and instead shown computer graphics to highlight where the injuries were located. This seems preposterous and supports the theory I mentioned earlier that Joe Cox did not die or was not the woman in the road. We saw earlier the claim that her body was whisked off to London without proper procedure. What could this mean? Does it mean the death was a hoax? Or does it mean there was something about the body they wanted to conceal? A viewer who is familiar with guns wrote to me after examining police images of the gun and claimed the weapon is incapable of firing or even properly holding a bullet. I've examined this case very closely and I cannot rule out the theory that the death was hoaxed. Here are three people whose work involves law enforcement. On the left is respected statement analyst Peter Hyatt. You may be familiar with him from my Madeleine McCann work. Peter is an expert in determining if witness accounts contain lies or fabrications. In the middle is Detective Inspector Nick Wallen, who ostensibly led the investigation into the murder of Joe Cox. On the right is Detective Sergeant Andy Cass, who was also, ostensibly, one of the senior investigating officers in the Joe Cox murder case. These detectives gave testimony in a BBC documentary. I transcribed their testimonies and commissioned Peter Hyatt to carry out analysis on their statements. The full analysis is over 90 minutes long, which can be watched from this link or from disc 3 of the DVD box set. Here are some extracts from the analysis.
It's a brutal attack. He is going to kill her. There is nothing going to stop him from doing so. There's rage. There's real rage.
The use of the negative in a statement is always flagged as significant to the speaker. Here the detective tells us that nothing gonna stop him. Why is this sensitive to the detective? Could a bodyguard have not stopped him? Was it a pre-gone conclusion that Joe Cox was to be killed?
There's an obsessive compulsiveness about him. The tins are facing the right way. It's that classic OCD-ness.
This is a character description, not a testimony or statement of fact.
He wasn't in chat rooms with other people in political groups. He wasn't on any online forums engaging in any healthy social debate.
The detective is trying to indict by what Mair wasn't doing. This would belie a lack of evidence and a need to persuade on the part of the detective.
He was able to immerse himself in this hatred and this ideology, and nobody knew about it.
People avoid direct fabrication as it is often stressful. The detective didn't say Mair immersed himself in this hatred and ideology. The detective said he was able to, not that he did. What caused this inclusion? This is a weak assertion. Note the negative, and nobody knew it. What has caused the subject to make a conclusion that is unprovable? This is not the language of investigation.
And then he starts looking at an image of a .22 rimfire rifle, and then a search on YouTube of some individuals in the United States test firing one.
The detective has gone into the present tense. This is unexpected, as all this occurred in the past. When we see shifting back and forth through tenses, we should be on the lookout for deception or storytelling. The detective again using passive language, a search and of some individuals. Thus far, the detective's narrative seems to be the reverse engineering or construction of an event to check off requisite points to substantiate what occurred.
I've got a marauding terrorist at loose. I didn't know if this individual was now shooting other people, stabbing other people in the streets and the area.
The detective now brings himself into the event with the pronoun I. Why? Why not we? We is expected. Is this his project in more than an investigative way?
Did he anticipate that the officers who would engage with him would be firearms officers? We see, particularly in the States, we see this phenomenon called suicide by cop. Was that what he anticipated those two officers were going to do to him? Was he intending to die in a blaze of glory, shot by the police? If that was his intention, unluckily for him, he was challenged by unarmed officers.
Is the subject wishing his audience to believe that Mair is suicidal? Here he does not commit to suicidal ideation or intention on the part of Mair, but implies it through the use of narrative building, scripted storytelling. It is used in emotionally persuading an audience, but is not expected in a reliable statement of fact by a detective.
There was a real palpable sense that something really horrific had occurred.
Why the need to add the qualifiers real and really? This could leave an audience with the question, was there a question to the reality of the event?
He's going to kill her, there is nothing going to stop him from doing so.
Is the detective in the mind of Mair, or is the detective leaking a plan? The detective has continued to guide our perception of Mair. The need to persuade is excessive. Note the present tense language indicates a lack of commitment of reliability.
The gun that was used is a .22 rimfire rifle.
Note the passivity. He did not state the killer used, but the gun that was used. Here the refusal to assign the sentence to the accused target is of concern. Our subject wanted to get to know him, yet he linguistically removes the target of the investigation from the responsibility of using the gun.
It was stolen in August 2015. It has passed, I would presume, through a number of hands before it's got to Thomas Mair, through the criminal fraternity.
In his language, Thomas Mair does not obtain the firearm. Instead, note the passive, it got to, as if the firearm again has control or a will of its own.
I'd taken that firearm to bits, but we found no DNA fingerprints or any traces of anybody else.
Again, the detective uses the pronoun I where the pronoun we is expected. This brings the detective very close to the gun.
So acquiring a firearm for a criminal purpose is not easy unless you are a criminal yourself and you know how to get one.
The detective feels the need to tell the audience why or how Mair got the gun. This is speculation on the part of the detective.
As an adult male in the 21st century, he is, like all of us, an owner of a mobile telephone, but in 3 years has sent 3 texts. And there is no call data.
The use of the word 3, which is used twice in this sentence, sometimes referred to as the liar's number, because when lying people need to choose a number between 1 and 10, will pick 3.
So he's not somebody who is immersed in criminality, making calls, wheeling and dealing, trying to get himself a firearm.
Mair is not immersed in criminality. Mair is not making calls. Mair is not wheeling and dealing. Mair is not trying to get a firearm.
That begs the question, how on earth did you, Thomas Mair, get that gun? It's an active line of inquiry, and I will not rest until I find out how he got that gun.
The detective poses a question in the third person. Questions when we expect answers is a concern of possible deception. He could say, we don't know how he acquired the gun. There is another change in language as the firearm returns to the status of gun. Here we do not have a clear linguistic change in reality for the speaker from the previous sentence. We must consider deception regarding the firearm. The concern is not that he has been murdered, but the mystery of how a criminal obtained a firearm. This is to move the audience away from the topic of the murder and onto a minor point. An audience would want to know why he committed this murder. The subject offers a priority of obtaining the means used in the murder. What has caused the subject to need to move attention away from the murder, the victim or the murderer, and onto the firearm? The detective's statements does reveal the need to move the topic away from A, the murder, B, the investigation, and C, the motive. The detective could be following a narrative given to him. He may be the architect of the narrative, and his seeming inappropriate use of the pronoun I indicates he is. It is unexpected for an investigator using opinion to present a closed case. He is deliberate in deception, manipulation, and in moving the topic away from the murder.
He had a black holdall, sports holdall. It does appear to be containing something heavy. I think he's pretty much had hold of the weapon wherever he's had it in his possession. You know, he's had it with him.
The gun was cut down to maybe 2 or 3 pounds, 1.5 kilos. I think he's pretty much had a hold of the weapon whenever he's had it in his possession. You know, he's had it with him. Here the detective distances himself from his own speculation. I think indicates conjecture, which is unexpected after the fact of the attack where we expect facts. Pretty much distances even further from his words. Had hold is a third point of distancing. How would he know this? From what is this based upon?
For want of a better expression, he's killing time. And significantly, he's in possession of the bag containing the firearm. Equally as important, he's wearing the 2 baseball caps, a black one underneath the cream baseball cap.
This is unexpected wording. He equates weapon, significantly possessed, with the 2 baseball hats. Why is it equally important? It is strange that he would wear 2 hats, and strange that of all the other things the detective speculates on, he does not speculate on this. If Mayer needed to disguise himself, would he not carry a second hat in the holdall? Giving equal importance to the baseball hats that is given to the weapon bag is concerning. It suggests weakness of belief on the part of the speaker.
There's significant CCTV in and around Market Square from both local authority systems and also from private systems, and we can effectively track his movements.
The word significant is an unnecessary word of persuasion. If it is evidence on the CCTV, it needs no qualification. It stands up on its own merit. CCTV, including from various setups, tracks movement of a person. It does not effectively track movement. This is a subtle form of distancing language. The detective also does not say did track his movements, but that we can effectively track his movements. If the detective is referring to looking back historically at the CCTV footage, he has not said so.
His movements from the CCTV would indicate that he'd done some form of reconnaissance before the incident and therefore knew what vehicle to look out for.
Note the passive and weakened statements with the words indicate and some form of reconnaissance. He did not say Mayer went from A to B, but his movements. This slight passivity indicates the subject does not possess confidence in his assertion. What causes the subject's doubt? Has he seen the CCTV? Is the CCTV in doubt? Just an aside here from RDH, what is in doubt is the man on CCTV is not Thomas Mayer, and Andy Cass knows this.
He's milling about, he purchases a chocolate bar and we see him eat the chocolate bar and dispose of the wrapper just opposite a shop called the Vape Lounge, where he's got a perfect vantage point down towards the library.
The detective returns to present tense, similar to storytelling or reliving an event due to trauma. The subject slows the pace down and offers specific detail of purchasing a chocolate bar and eating a chocolate bar and then disposing of the wrapper. This is an abundance of detail. This is stated with an increase in reliability of language. This is an overabundance of detail, which suggests a man on video is seen purchasing, eating and disposing of the wrapper of a candy bar. The subject is confident in these three actions. Please consider that when one is deceptive, including if in ignorance of facts, confidence is lacking, and many deceptive people will emphasize something they are no longer concerned about stating. It is a signal that although this portion of information is true, its inclusion is unnecessary detail and suggests to the contrary regarding other assertions.
Thomas Mair turns onto John Nelson Close, where he basically walks into the rear garden of a property which was quite heavily overgrown, where he makes efforts to change his appearance.
Basically tells us there is missing information that is being withheld. Additional unnecessary detail, rear garden of a property which was quite heavily overgrown, may anticipate the challenge of CCTV or witness statements contrary to this account. The detective adds another point of weakness when he states that Mair makes efforts. With the words makes efforts is unnecessary as well as diminishing and weakening the detective's statement. Makes efforts is similar to trying, meaning unsuccessful. Expected is to tell us what he did, not what efforts would be utilized. This is consistent with knowing the mind of the actor alleged to be Mair rather than reporting what happened.
Basically removed his outer clothing, so he's just now wearing a grey t-shirt and the black hat.
In a sequential sentence, the detective again uses the word basically. This indicates he is purposely leaving out information about the topic. The subject remains in a present tense. Expected is he took off his overcoat. Without the need to explain, one would not want to be recognised or caught with blood.
The overcoat was discarded, was forensically examined and contained blood of Joe Cox.
The subject now speaks in the past tense. Note the passive voice of the overcoat was discarded rather than he threw it away or anything similar. There is a change in language as the outer clothing becomes the overcoat. There does not appear to be a change in reality to account for the change in language. This can be an indicator of deception, including repeating what someone else told him, yet attempting to stitch together accounts to fit narrative. Was forensically examined and contained blood of Joe Cox. Note the use of past tense with was. Was forensically examined is passive voice and appropriate if the subject did not know who did the testing. Note and contained the blood of Joe Cox is reliably stated. He did not need to state it was not basically the blood of Joe Cox or effectively the blood. This is stated reliably, meaning the subject believes his own words here.
Joe had sustained 3 gunshot wounds about the head and 13 stab wounds, many of which punctured her heart, her lungs and her liver.
Note the return to commitment, past tense. This is another statement of reliability. The subject allows these words to stand on their own. He has no need of persuasion. He believes these words. The subject shows weakness of commitment in many portions of the statement. He is only reliable in 3 portions. 1. The actor, alleged to be Mair's activities with a candy bar. 2. The injuries to the victim. And 3. Evidence of blood. By reliable, it means that the subject believes his own words. He addresses these issues in a way that reveals confidence. When he describes surveillance, including video, he indicates sensitivity and anticipates a need to justify and defend rather than allow evidence to stand upon its own. Regarding Mair, the subject does not believe many of his own words. This may be due to A. Ignorance or B. Willful deception. Ignorance could be the repeating of things told him to present that did not come from experiential memory but have become part of a forced narrative for him to put together. Deception. The wording is heavily qualified because the subject is using language he himself does not believe. By taking into account Peter Hyatt's conclusions and the evidence I have already mentioned in this film, Here are my own conclusions on the role of the two detectives. These are my own opinions. 1. D.I. Wallen was involved in planning the whole operation to frame Thomas May. 2. D.I. Wallen was involved in acquiring the gun for the operation. 3. D.I. Wallen probably telephoned Thomas May to manipulate him to be at particular locations such as the garden and Rysdale Avenue. This is because of his extreme sensitivity to Thomas May's phone and his unlikely claim that there was no call data. 4. DS Cass knows that in all CCTV footage featuring a suspect in a white cap, that man is not Thomas May. 5. DS Cass knows Thomas May is innocent and was used as a patsy. 6. DS Cass believes Joe Cox was killed by someone other than Thomas May. 7. Both officers know the evidence they claim to have found in May's house is fabricated. 8. In their statements, both officers are trying to blacken Thomas May's character because they know there is no genuine evidence which shows he was involved in the attack. It is interesting that the analysis reveals that DS Cass believes Joe Cox was killed. This does not prove she was killed. If Cox's body was taken straight to London as it was suggested, it is likely Cass has not seen a body, and his belief is the result of reading a post-mortem report written by the dodgy pathologist Dr. Richard Shepherd. D.I. Wallen avoids talking about the body or injuries, despite claiming he was one of the first at the scene. I suspect Wallen knows the full extent of the operation.